What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome to Exposé with Tony Akinyemi this beautiful Monday evening, 8 p.m. West African time. I'm always happy to be your host on this very wonderful platform where we share wellness information for your well-being. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, for the best prescription is knowledge. Our conversation around fertility, infertility, pregnancy, childbirth, and now, rape, I believe, has been a very, very interesting and trysting conversation. Last week, we signed off on the needs of a female rape victim, profiling the needs of a female rape victim. And we looked at psycho-emotional needs, we looked at medical needs, we looked at spiritual needs, we looked at legal needs, and then, of course, other needs. Right. And then we concluded by looking at forensic evidence, gathering forensic evidence for the pursuit of justice in the case of rape. Now, the rapist needs to be brought to book. But of course, there are a few very sensitive questions that I left with you last week. I know many of us must have ruminated over those questions, thought about them, and you have your thoughts and your opinions. Okay, now my take is that we cannot have a hard and fast rule governing every case. I believe that every rape case should be treated on its own merit. All right, now somebody might want to also ask, where is the place of forgiveness when you are saying we should pursue justice? Yeah, pursuing justice does not mean that there is no forgiveness. Now, forgiveness has to do with something that is internal to you and has an impact on you when you refuse to let go, okay, of that person. But we're talking about justice in order to have an orderly society, in order to have a sane society and a safe society. That's what justice does. Injustice anywhere creates, chaos. It creates, a society that is not safe, a society that creates a lot more problems for people. Because if somebody commits a crime, okay, and gets away with it, then impunity will go up. And when there is impunity, that will lead to anarchy. And we cannot afford to build a society where there is impunity, where there is anarchy, where anything goes and there are no consequences. Consequences are to provide checks and balances and to also serve as deterrents, to those who might be thinking of or who might be wanting to commit such, crimes and atrocities. So there is a place for justice, and that doesn't preclude forgiveness, okay? Now, today I want to talk to parents in particular, and those who are, father figures, mother figures, over the lives of those who may have suffered or the trauma of being raped. So I would say to parents, please never do any of these that I'm going to highlight if you have somebody, your ward, your daughter, raped. Number one, do not disbelieve her story. Don't believe her story without giving her the benefit of the doubt. Because you see, the first fear of a rape victim is nobody will believe me. It's my word against his word. Nobody will believe me. That's the first thing that traumatizes the victim, apart from the trauma of the experience itself. If I tell people, they won't believe my story. Now, the fact that somebody comes up to say that she has been raped doesn't mean that we should take her word as gospel. Of course, it has to be investigated. It has to be interrogated. But then the first response should not be to say, no, I don't believe you. That would be very, very damaging. That would be taking it even further in traumatizing the victim. So I would say the first thing is, do not disbelieve her story until it has been proven otherwise. Give her the benefit of the doubt. She needs that much support to be able to navigate through the challenges of the experience. Number two, I would say, do not be upset or angry with or irritated by her. She's already a victim of something. If she's not cooperating with you in your line of action, simply show understanding. Okay, because you see, some rape victims say, no, I don't want the police to be involved. No, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to the hospital. No, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Now, she may not be in the best frame of mind to know what is best for her and her situation at this time. And so my take is that such a person, we should show her understanding and keep urging her, counseling her, encouraging her, offering our pieces of advice until we come to that place where she can make her decisions, her correct and right decisions. Okay. And then I would say number three, parents, please do not criticize or blame her. That's not what she needs now. Somebody has just been raped. And don't tell her, you caused it with your seductive dressing. You're always partying all over town. That's not what she needs now. Yes, she may have done some silly things that made her vulnerable for that experience, but this is not the time to start blaming or criticizing. She doesn't need it now. Or how could you be so stupid to allow yourself to be raped? That's not the right question to ask right now. Or telling her, oh, you could have resisted. Why were you so naive like that? Resistance might work in some cases, but studies have shown that fighting back makes the attacks against her actually become more violent in 20 to 35% of the cases. Now, there are ways that people react when they experience rape, because you see, it's not something that they planned for. It just happens to them suddenly, happens upon them suddenly. And so there are three different ways to respond to that sudden, action of rape. When a man attempts to rape a woman, there are three ways that woman can respond. And incidentally, the three of them begin with the letter F. So I call it F1, F2, and F3. Now, studies show that when a woman is face-to-face with a rapist attempting to rape her, three instincts can happen. And these three instincts are decided by the body, not the rational mind, because there's no time to process what to do. The body goes into autonomic mode, so to speak. It goes into autopilot. It goes into cruise mode. And it is the body that begins to churn out chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, and different chemicals in the body. And it is the body itself that decides how to respond, not the rational mind of the individual. We need to understand that. Not too many people understand that. And you see, there are three possible instincts that a woman face-to-face with a rapist can show. F1, F2, F3. F1 is to fight, to show resistance by either shouting, screaming, or fighting back, or hitting the man with whatever it is that she can lay her hands upon. That is F1, fight. That's the first instinct. The second instinct is flight, to try to flee from the predator, to try to escape. And that may work, that may not work. Because the person who is planning the rape also takes a number of factors into account to make sure that his victim does not escape. And then the third instinct, F3, is to freeze. To curl up, to become tense, to become confused, may even become silent. And this third instinct of freezing is the most common instinct and the most misunderstood by parents and even the courts of law. Because you see, people just assume that if she didn't shout or she didn't scream or she didn't resist, then she could not possibly claim to have been raped. She wanted it and she enjoyed it. That's why she didn't make any attempt to fight back or to flee or to shout and scream. Not realizing that she had frozen, because her rational mind was not involved anymore. Okay? So she could either fight or flee or freeze. But then the freezing has been found to be the most common instinct that women show when they are face to face with a rapist. So because of that understanding, we suggest don't criticize her, don't blame her. She doesn't need that for now. Then make sure that you do not trivialize the experience by joking about it now or in the future. Rape is not something to joke about or to use to crack jokes, because it will make the person to relive the experience, to relive the trauma again and again. Okay? So please don't trivialize it as a small thing. It's a serious matter. It's a serious matter. And then don't use the experience to attack her now or in the future. You see, the way you're dressed now, that was how you did last year and they raped you. No. Please don't use that negative experience she had to attack her or to teach her or train her or mentor her. No. That is not the right approach, in my personal opinion. Don't forget I told you I wear 4 caps. I'm an engineer, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a pastor, and I'm a parent. So as a pastor and a parent, I do not think that using that negative experience to attack her now or to try to, train her or call her to order when she begins to, manifest some kinds of behavior, that's not the right way to go. And then if she's an adult, don't force her to involve others in the matter if she doesn't want to. Instead, you can only persuade her. But if it is, a minor that has been violated, I suggest strongly that parents should take full charge. You don't need the consent of a minor as a parent. You take the decisions and pursue it to a logical conclusion. But if she's an adult, what can we do? You can only persuade. And next, I would say don't threaten her that you will return her to the place where she was violated, the place where she was raped if she doesn't behave. If you don't behave yourself, I'm going to return you to your uncle's house now, or I'm going to return you to so and so place. No, don't threaten. Don't threaten. Those are not positive actions for somebody who has been traumatized through rape. And then I would also say, don't cover up the act for whatever reason, except maybe in a few very, very private and family reasons, if you have that. Report the matter to the appropriate quarters, except there are personal reasons not to do so. Okay? Maybe we can still talk about that as we go on, because I realize that that's a very sensitive one. And this is critical. This next one is very critical. Please avoid the blame game. Don't be hard on yourself if you are the victim. Don't blame yourself as the cause. Even if you are the cause, blaming yourself is adding salt on injury. Don't blame your spouse either. Don't blame anybody around you. Playing the blame game does not solve any problem. So if I have given you things that you shouldn't do, the next question I believe you will ask me is, okay, then what should we do? Can you give us suggestions of what we should do? I have already alluded to some of them previously, both last week and then earlier today. So let me summarize the things that I believe should be my suggested list of things for parents in particular to do, or anybody who is offering support to somebody who has been a rape victim, particularly a female rape victim. Number one is to give her immediate medical care. That's number one. We've discussed various areas of care needed. Pregnancy concern is there, prevention of infection, sexually transmitted infections and diseases, if there is injury and all of that require prompt medical care. And then there's another area of medical care, or maybe I should call it another area of therapy that is needed, her mental health. So here we must enlist the services of professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, ministers of religion, pastors, experienced people in this regard. There are some NGOs that also offer such supports. We need to enlist the services of professionals for her mental health. And thirdly, I would say show her love. Show her love. Be there for her all the way, from hospital to police station to the law courts or wherever she needs to be. Be there. Don't push her and say, go and sort yourself out. You brought yourself into that situation. Go and sort yourself out. That's not therapy. And next, guide her through the journey. That's guidance. Give her guidance. Guide her through the journey. And then offer her protection. Remove the offender from her environment, or remove her from the environment of the offender, particularly for minors, because once bitten, twice shy. If a girl has been raped by her father, for example, you need to take her from the environment of the father, because it can happen again. If she has been raped by her own sibling or cousin or relative, remove her from the environment, because it can happen again. Either you remove the offender from the environment, or you remove the victim from the environment. And if it is an unknown person, okay, the best place to keep the offender is in jail. That's to make the environment safe. Okay? There's a place in the Bible, I think in the book of Romans, where it says, the God of peace will bruise Satan under your feet shortly. The God of peace will bruise Satan under your feet shortly. When I come back from this break, I will take off from that Bible passage so we can analyze it. Talking about protection, removing the offender from her, from the environment of the victim, or removing the victim from the environment of the offender, particularly when the victim is a minor. Don't go away. I'll be back very shortly.
Have you been through stuffs and you survived? Guess what? It's time to set your world on fire. You never know who needs your light, your warmth, and courage. You are a survivor, and that's amazing. I Am a Survivor is Reverend Tony Akinyemi's newest book. Hurry now, grab a copy from the TSS bookstore.
Welcome back. This is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. We're talking rape. Before we went on that short break, I commenced giving you my suggested list of things that parents should do in support of a female rape victim. Number one, I said give her medical care immediately. Immediate medical care. For pregnancy concerns, for injury, for infections, possible sexually transmitted infections. Number two, attend to her mental health. And in all of these, you have to engage professionals. Number three, show her love and support. Follow her to all the places she has to go. The police station, the hospital, the law courts. And then number four, give her guidance. Guide her through this journey to navigate through. She may not be in control. She may not know what to do. She may be confused. And then number five, protect her. Remove her from the environment of the offender, or remove the offender from her environment. That was where we signed off before we went on that break. Now that we are back, I promised I was going to read a Bible passage so we can further elaborate on that suggestion. Romans chapter 16, verse number 20 is the Bible passage that I want us to read. I read from the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. Romans 16:20. It says, then the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. The God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. Now, for me, I look at it this way. Now, look at the language used regarding what to do to Satan there. He said, crush Satan. To crush, you know what it means to crush? crush the head of somebody, or crush somebody means to use something heavy to really crush that person and break that person, deal with that person and injure that person or take that person out. That's what it means to crush. And then somebody who is crushing another person's head is now described as the God of peace. But then the Bible says the God of peace will crush the head of Satan. How can someone who is crushing another person's head now be described as a man of peace or a God of peace? Can you see the paradox there? That is a paradox. But then, it shouldn't be confusing. There is no conflict whatsoever. If you take a criminal, somebody that is traumatizing society, maybe an armed robber, maybe these bandits, maybe these kidnappers, maybe these terrorists that are traumatizing society and everybody, anyone who can help to mop them up and take them out, and take them out of circulation, take them out of existence, remove them from society, is actually instituting peace in that society. So when you crush such people, you are a man of peace. That's why the Bible describes God as the God of peace. It is in that light. The God of peace will crush Satan under your feet shortly. So whoever is crushing those who are responsible for violence, that person is a man of peace or a woman of peace. That's why I said there is a place for justice. There is a place for litigation. There is a place for jailing rapists. When you remove them from circulation, then people can move around freely, not being afraid of the fact that somebody might just pounce on them and rape them. So anyone who can take out criminals, offenders, violators from society is instituting peace in that society. That is why, jailing offenders is the right step in the right direction. There's nothing against it in the Bible, okay? So, another suggestion that I have is that we should not ignore the spiritual needs of a rape victim. I've mentioned that earlier, last week. Prayer and all the spiritual support we can offer. And also helping the individual to walk through bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, hatred, and all of those things. They are very, very critical and important. Yeah, the fact that you have forgiven somebody does not mean that that person should not face the wrath of the law. It doesn't mean that that person should not, go through the whole process of litigation. And then we have to also institute preventive measures for the future. One of them is, like I said, removing the victim from the environment of the violator, or removing the violator from the environment of the victim. Every loophole must be plugged to prevent recurrence. And all of us, without exception, all of us in society must enlist in efforts to address the rape scourge in our land. Whatever experience you have in whatever field, bring it to bear. If you're a lawyer, please offer your services pro bono into the efforts to, address this scourge. If you're a medical practitioner, offer your services. If you're a pastor, offer your services. If you're a counselor, you're a psychologist, offer your services. All of us must enlist in this effort to address the rape scourge in the land. Now, coming back to spirituality again, there's a way to help a person through counseling, through prayer, through therapy for forgiveness, for that person to develop a positive outlook on life, so that the things that the person has suffered will not have implications, negative implications for the person's future life. Maybe in her marriage, when she gets married later, if she's not currently married. Now, so parents must understand that there may be no instant cures when it comes to recovery from post-rape trauma or rape trauma syndrome or post-traumatic stress syndrome. God's grace and a lot of patience are needed to navigate through the tough terrain of recovery. Now, all parents, and all of us in particular, can get involved in our respective communities by doing a number of things. We can volunteer, for example, in an NGO, in public speaking, in counseling, in funding, in offering our skill set and professional services pro bono. We can get involved in advocacy, in raising public awareness on rape. We can get involved in legal reforms, pushing for legal reforms to ensure that those who commit such crimes are brought to book and no big fish anywhere, and no people who are pressing buttons for people here and there to make offenders go scot-free and become more emboldened and become and do things with impunity. We must push for that. And then we need to also influence our educational curriculum for reforms. I read lately, I think it was late 2022, yes? It was during the last quarter of 2022 that I read that a suggestion had come up in Nigeria that sex education should be removed from the curriculum of children, I think, in primary and secondary schools. And I was wondering, why would that happen? Why would that happen? Now, it depends on the content of what is being taught. Now, if parents, for example, the literacy level in Nigeria is not that high, and so there are many parents who don't even know what to teach their children when it comes to sex education. They don't know how to teach them, how to communicate it. They don't know areas of information, areas of awareness, like all these things I've been talking about since last week about rape, how to mitigate the effects of rape on a victim, how to prevent a victim from experiencing it again, and all of that. There are many parents out there who are not well informed to the point where they can actually offer the necessary sex education to their wards. And that's why the schools are there to complement what parents do at home. Parents, of course, should take the lead in raising their children. I don't have any argument against that. But then parents and educational institutions should collaborate, particularly on this particular issue, in bringing the awareness and the necessary education and information to our children so they can protect themselves. Because you see, all of us are guilty to some degree, and all of us must take responsibility to some degree. Now, for example, the victim herself may have some blame, even though we don't want to play the blame game. But there are those who put themselves in positions that make them even more vulnerable than others. There are certain places that you go to that make you more vulnerable to the incidents of rape. And if you're a decent girl, you don't go to such places. Therefore, you reduce the incidence in your own life. There are some provocative ways that some girls dress. Of course, I don't believe that because a girl dresses provocatively, therefore the man should become an animal and not be able to control himself. That means that the man himself has a problem, because it is what is inside of you that can be provoked. Somebody gave an illustration the other day. He said, if you take a bottle of Coke, the liquid inside is black, dark in color. As black as it is, if you taste it, it is sweet. Okay? Sweet to the taste. Now, if you take a bottle of Coke that has not been opened and you shake it vigorously, then you open the bottle of Coke, it will erupt all over the place. Now, in that eruption, if you still taste what erupted out of the bottle, it will still be sweet, because it is what is inside that will come outside. So when somebody say, oh, he provoked me, and then that was why I did what I did, either it is sexual provocation or verbal provocation, whatever provocation it is what is inside of you that will come out when you are provoked. So if somebody dresses seductively around you, I am not holding brief for the lady who dresses seductively. The Bible teaches us to be decent, okay? And we have to be. We have to raise our daughters to be decent. But what I'm saying is that even if a girl chooses not to be decently dressed, that is not a license or an excuse for a man to rape her. It means that rape is inside that man. And that was why the rape was provoked by her seductive dressing. Deal with yourself. If you cannot sight a lady provocatively dressed, that is a problem. And so all of us must get involved in education, in educating people in how to be disciplined, how to control themselves, and particularly those of us who are ministers of religion. The flesh has to be curtailed. And how do you do that? Give your life to Christ, be born again, so that your spirit man gains ascendancy and you begin to live the spiritual life or the spirit life, rather than living life in the flesh as a carnal person who cannot control himself. God's grace is available to us all, and there are many other ways in which we can all be involved. Let's pay attention, let's get involved, let's stem the tide, and let's create a sane and safe society for our children to grow up in and to have, the best of life under our watch. I want to thank you once again for spending your evening with me this beautiful Monday evening, 8 p.m. Nigerian time till now. I pray for you that your week will be very beautiful and loaded with pleasant surprises from God. And if there are people who have been traumatized either by rape or by any other traumatizing experience, I pray for your emotional healing, psychological healing, spiritual healing, mental health, that the Holy Spirit himself will breathe upon you and heal your inner wounds, bring you back to normalcy, so that your future will not become a victim of your past experiences. May you have a glorious tomorrow, and may God compensate you for all your traumas and losses of the past. Above all, I pray that you have a relationship and sweet fellowship with God, so that after this life, in life after life, you can dwell with him throughout eternity. The Lord bless you. Bye.
Have you been through stuffs and you survived? Guess what? It's time to set your world on fire. You never know who needs your light, your warmth, and courage. You are a survivor, and that's amazing. I Am a Survivor is Reverend Tony Akinyemi's newest book. Hurry now, grab a copy from the TSS bookstore.